Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called The Warning by Harry Riley. What's the matter with him then? Oh, just ignore him. He gets like that sometimes. My wife tried to get our dog to move. Come on, Nelson, you can't lay there all day. We're on one of our longer cross-country walks in hilly Derbyshire. Just the three of us, my wife, the dog, our short-legged Jack Russell, called Nelson, and me. The week before had been very unsettled, with lots of heavy cloud bursts, but today had been a more cheerful day, one of those sunny days in late autumn. Not too cold that it takes your breath, and just a hint of a breeze now and again to freshen you up and give you the energy to keep walking. We'd set out in the afternoon and driven further than we'd intended, almost into Staffordshire, and turned off the main road, parking in a lay-by to change into our walking boots. And then, armed with 2 water bottles and a picnic in my rucksack, we trudged off to explore the nicely undulating countryside. Venturing along a bridle path, we passed 2 or 3 fields on both sides, surrounded by steep hills, and then came to a crossroads sign. There was a choice, to go left or right. A stile just off to the right seemed to be a continuation of our track, but did not appear to be marked on our old Ordnance Survey map. We decided to take a chance, and to make it our route. For some reason Nelson, who usually liked to lead the way, was very reluctant to move and sat down again, growling his annoyance. Jack Russells can be bossy little varmints at times, and we knew he didn't like wooden steps, so I promptly picked him up and carried him over the stile, to be released, still on a long lead into the field. We followed this new track, admiring the unsport scenery, listening to the bird life, and wondering at the lack of people. It's amazing how soon you can leave humanity behind if you really try. About an hour or so later, and after enjoying a pleasant picnic, sitting on some flat rocks by a stream, where Nelson was able to paddle, we thought we'd continue walking for another half hour or so, and then turn back, before the light became too dim for us to see. There were no cattle or sheep about, so we'd unclipped the terrier from his leash, letting him free to sniff the hedgerows and abundant rabbit holes. He would never wander far away from us, especially in strange surroundings. But now, as I called him to join us, he just sat back on his haunches and refused to budge. He was not particularly old, and was usually bursting with boundless enthusiasm for being outdoors, so we couldn't understand his reluctance to go any further. My wife said maybe it's the bridge that's frightened him. I could see there was a narrow wooden footbridge not far ahead, fording a swift-flowing river that had risen virtually up to the treads. And as I steered through the misty sunshine, I caught sight of a raddled old man on the bridge, half facing us and waving his stick as if warning us to keep away. He was dressed in a peculiar, old-fashioned long black coat, and was frantically urging us to turn back. The breeze had picked up, turning the air quite cold, and as the weak sun vanished behind a cloud, and then the fellow's thin reedy voice sailed through the air, and he sank to his knees, wailing us to beware. Go back, you must turn back, if you value your lives. There was something unreal about it all, and then just as suddenly the sun reappeared and the man had gone. I looked at my wife. Did you hear him? Tell me I didn't imagine it. She stared back at me oddly. I don't know what you mean. I never saw or heard a thing. And with that remark, she boldly crossed the rickety wooden construction ahead of me. I had a small, self-imposed task to do before I bundled up the dog again and scurried after her. The experience, though, had put a damper on my spirits. and soon after turning a bend by the side of a long dead oak, I persuaded her we should turn around and retrace our steps. You may find it hard to believe, but although we had only walked across the bridge a short while earlier, the damn thing had gone. What I mean to say is, it hadn't gone, but had been replaced by a sturdy stone bridge spanning the water, and as we drew near we could see a small bronze plaque was bolted to the side. The inscription read, "On this site, in 1898, an elderly couple and their small dog were swept away to drown in a flash flood that rained down from the hillside. They were crossing an existing wooden bridge at the time, and its supports gave way, hurling them to their deaths." We had just crossed that same wooden bridge, over 100 years later. This my wife couldn't deny, as I'd had the foresight to take her photograph making the crossing. End.